3 months into the Ukraine war, and evidence of Russian atrocities is mounting.
They beat me for an hour until blood was coming out of my mouth.
After the Russian withdrawal from the suburbs of Kyiv, we hear the stories of the civilians murdered in cold blood.
A bullet hit Ivan in the head as he sat in the back seat.
Now, the soldiers that terrorized Kyiv are threatening towns in the east. Residents are being forced to flee.
It's pure horror, never stops.
I would say there are thousands of perpetrators at the ground level and scores of perpetrators at the higher level.
Tonight on Panorama, the hunt for Putin's war criminals. The invasion of northern Kyiv as seen through the eyes of Russian soldiers, filming themselves in expectation of a swift victory. They fanned out across Hostomel Airport, a strategic staging post into the capital.
Машины, скажи, чтобы машины не трогали, людей гражданских не трогали.
Those orders were soon ignored. I was here the day war broke out, and by chance filmed some of those Russian soldiers as they advanced into the city.
This guy's got a gun in front of him. Okay. Is he pointing at me? Just...
3 months on, the scars they inflicted remain. This is the exact spot where we encountered those Russian soldiers on the first day of the war. And we've learnt since that they were part of a crack Russian unit called the 31st Air Assault Brigade. And we've come back here to find out what happened to them next and to the Ukrainians they encountered. This housing estate overlooks the airport where they landed. CCTV images show the moment Russian armor arrived. Paratroopers were soon roaming the corridors. Up on the 5th floor, Alla and her family braced themselves.
They were armed and aggressive. They turned everything upside down, then checked the entire floor. They went onto the 3rd floor and we heard them tearing down the doors of the neighbours and making a huge noise.
The 31st Brigade weren't just passing through, they were planning on staying, using the estate as a makeshift barracks.
They lived in our stairwell, the next stairwell. They lived everywhere and in every block. They took people's phones, and if they didn't like you, they just beat you up. They were rude and patronising and behaved as though they owned the place.
But Alla and her family managed to outwit the Russian soldiers.
These are the boots my daughter wore through 38 days of occupation. And we hid our phones inside them, under the insoles. And these boots saved our connection with the outside world. I messaged my sister once a day with just 2 words. We're alive.
The Russians detained Alla's husband, Vitaly, accusing him of working for the Ukrainian military.
They beat me for an hour until blood was coming out of my mouth. Then I showed them my stomach where I'd had 8 operations. They checked my papers and let us go.
Vitaly, Alla and their daughter fled. But Alla's mother, Lyubov, refused to leave.
So, shall I go first? This is where I lived. I slept here. One camp bed was here, and another was over there.
The soldiers that had beaten her son-in-law were now ransacking the entire estate.
They went to the apartments. They were looting. They packed everything they could grab into their vehicles. I was thinking, they're kids. They're cannon fodder. Today you're alive and tomorrow, who knows?
Residents complained to one of the older soldiers, assuming he was in command.
People asked him, why don't you tell those soldiers to stop looting? And he said, I told them, but they wouldn't listen to me.
She says a soldier told her the name of his unit.
There it says 31st Assault Brigade.
Why did you write on there?
Well, because I might forget it, so I wrote it down to remember it.
Evidence from the early days of the war shows that soldiers from the 31st Air Assault Brigade looted flats and beat civilians. But as Ukrainian forces fought back, the Russians, taking heavy casualties, became increasingly violent.
I think you have to see what happened in Ukraine in terms of phases. I think the first phase, the Russian army appeared to be targeting the military and targeting civilian infrastructure, but not civilians themselves.
Wayne Jordash is a British barrister living in Kyiv, who's helping Ukrainian war crimes investigators.
The next phase was a realization by the Russians that the Ukrainians did not want them, and so the level of violence against civilians themselves rose.
A week after the invasion, Yuri Prilipko, the mayor of Hostomel, was delivering food and medicine to elderly residents. With the mayor, 3 volunteers, one also called Yuri. As their car rounded a bend, they came face to face with a column of Russian soldiers.
We were already in their full view. It was too late to turn around. There were no leaves on the trees at this time, and at this exact spot, they opened fire.
Was there any warning?
No, there was no warning from them.
Yuri, were you carrying weapons or anything that could be perceived as a weapon?
No, we didn't have any weapons.
Bullets smashed into the car, hitting Yuri's friend Ivan in the head. Alive but badly bleeding, they drove Ivan to a medical center on the Pokrovsky estate, now home to the Russian 31st Brigade.
When we got here, they started shooting at us again. The shots were coming from the far entrance. They were fired from that block over there.
At that point, do you have any idea why they were attacking you?
No, I don't understand why they fired.
Fleeing the car, they sheltered behind a digger. For 4 hours, they were pinned down by soldiers firing from the tower blocks.
And this is the point where they really opened up on us. We were lying under the digger, and they shot at us with a grenade launcher.
Ivan, who'd been shot in the head, died from his injuries. Then the mayor's phone rang, giving away his hiding place. The Russians fired again, and he was killed.
I've asked myself 1,000 times. And I cannot explain why they had to finish off defenseless people in a civilian car.
Could there ever be an excuse for opening fire on unarmed civilians?
Well, the scenario you've just laid out is very difficult to see an excuse. If they're unarmed, if they look like civilians, the presumption must be that they were civilians, they are civilians.
The killing of Ivan and the mayor are now being investigated as potential war crimes. The Ukrainians say at least 650 people were executed in the northern suburbs of Kyiv, something the Russian government denies. When the Russian forces withdrew, some residents were able to return home. Many, like Vitaly Semenets, found they'd been looted. But one soldier who ransacked his apartment inadvertently gave away where his unit was heading next. What did the Russians take? Have you any idea?
Some few electronics, like my portables, Nintendo Switch.
They took your Nintendo?
Yeah.
They also took his headphones, which he was able to track via an app on his phone. Vitaly watched as the soldier took his headphones north, then east.
Out of Kiev, they have went to Belarus, then to Bryansk district.
So this is around the top edge of Ukraine?
Yeah. And then to Belgorod, I guess.
So again, down through the northeast?
Yeah, and the last point somewhere here.
So that's where they are now?
Yes.
So we can assume that the soldiers who looted your apartment have then gone back round to fight on another front, on the eastern front, if you like.
Yeah.
We head east, towards the last known location of the 31st Brigade, to an area Ukrainian President Zelensky says is being destroyed, Donbass. Russian forces already control large areas, and the fighting here is intense. One of the region's most important towns is Slavyansk, about 20 kilometers from the front line. It's still under Ukrainian control for now. So we're just approaching Slavyansk and we can see columns of smoke coming up into the air. That apparently is from a location a little further on than Slavyansk. We arrive in an almost empty town. Just a few soldiers on the street and the wail of air raid sirens. The Russians may have withdrawn from the outskirts of Kyiv, but they're determined to take control of eastern Ukraine. We have an appointment in the town hall, where the only official left is the mayor. When I came through today, I noticed how very quiet the streets are. What proportion of the population has already fled?
Ну, уехало 70%, осталось 30%. Это 30 тысяч человек осталось.
People here know what Russian soldiers did to civilians in the suburbs of Kyiv, but fleeing isn't an option for many. Thank you. Hello. How are you? Nice to meet you. British.
Good day.
Good day. 84-year-old Valentina Pelchikova knows the Russian army is advancing, albeit slowly, towards Slavyansk. With no relatives to help, she's stuck. So what are you going to do now? Are you going to leave? You need to leave, don't you, to get out of this city?
No, I'm not going anywhere. Not anywhere. I'm staying in my home no matter what happens.
Valentina's flat is full of mementos from her career as a renowned singer and actress, photos of her performing, and a Soviet-era certificate celebrating her career.
I've spent my whole life on the stage singing. I want things to be beautiful, and I want the war to be over as soon as possible. And I hope my home won't be destroyed and I'm left in the gutter in this state.
If the Russians are to take Slavyansk, first they need to capture the neighboring town of Liman to the north. We try to get there, and then a massive explosion. A cruise missile attack destroying the railway bridge that links Liman to Slaviansk. We've got to be quick filming this because there's a tendency for when there's been one big hit, which there was yesterday, for a second to come in, especially when one bridge is still standing, which is the one we're about to walk onto. The Ukrainians are dug in around here, but we can't reveal their location. It's along here they expect the Russians to advance next. You can hear the explosions up the road. It's grad and artillery fire. The Russians are about 6 or 7 kilometers down the road. We can't really go any further along because the next town along, which is Liman, there is a fierce fight for control of it. Just to the west of Slaviansk, another frontline town is coming under attack. The 31st Air Assault Brigade is near here. We're on our way to a small town called Barvinkova, which is on the front line. I mean, this is a place that is very dangerous. To get there, we have to be escorted by a Ukrainian soldier.
One day is safety, silent, we can work. Next day, crazy total war.
This is about as close to the 31st Brigade as we can get. Barvinkova is almost deserted. I'm surprised to see anyone on the streets. Yeah? What are you doing here? This man tells me he's got cancer, but says if the Russians arrive, he'll still try to resist them. Then, Ukrainian rocket fire. There's a lot of noise. And you live with this. That's outgoing, isn't it? But the Russians could easily fire back. A few moments later, the Ukrainian rocket launcher moves to another location. It's time for us to go too. Back in Slaviansk, casualties from the front are arriving for treatment. Two soldiers have been injured by the explosive shockwave from a Russian artillery shell. It can cause internal injuries, concussion, and damage to the nervous system. Do you know where he was when this happened?
Це було на лінії зіткнення. Хлопці були на позиціях і їх обстріляли з артилерії, з мінометів.
How close were you?
Метрів 10. Добре, що окопчики спасають.
All right.
Трішки відпочинуть і все буде добре.
Ukraine claims to have killed tens of thousands of Russian soldiers. But Russia has only acknowledged a tiny fraction of that. It's impossible to know the true number, but we've seen evidence about losses inflicted on the 31st Brigade. We've accessed a closed messaging group that appears to be for wives, mothers and girlfriends of soldiers from the 31st. We can't verify the identity of those using the group, but it appears to be real. This chat room gives an extraordinary insight into things from the Russians' perspective and from mothers and from wives. Somebody here says, "Morning, has anyone got the number for the morgue in Rostov?" Somebody else says, "In our military district, we've had the most losses. We've already buried 2 battalions. 2 battalions, that's 600 men." It also says that they've spoken to officials who are saying that the war won't finish anytime soon. In fact, it'll go on for 9 months. In Slavyansk, concern is growing that Russian forces are getting closer. Volunteers are organizing transport out. Is this your son? What's he called?
Владик.
Hey, are you okay?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yes.
How do you feel about this?
Потому что там громко. Во-первых, тут сирены куча, бомбят, еще подвалы надо спускаться, еще стреляют много. А мама пытается, чтобы я выжил, и я ее иногда поддерживаю, чтобы она не плакала. Вот, поэтому мы едем. Мам, не жаловались. Ну, прям...
Others have already spent a day on the road, fleeing the besieged town of Liman. In the back of a makeshift ambulance, elderly refugees who'd narrowly escaped their home being destroyed. How was he hurt?
Это, говорю, рядом с домом, прямо не на нас упала, а на соседней воронка целая.
What's the situation in Liman at the moment?
Там тихий ужас. Там без конца. У меня не двигается. Нет, наверное, там горят просто дома. Короче говоря. Спасибо.
As we also prepare to leave, there's news from Valentina. A local church group has offered to take her west.
They're going to take me away the day after tomorrow. It's just, I don't know how I will go away. Whether I'll come back or not, it's very hard for me to leave this place. Such a big place, and it's empty now. Everyone's gone. They left everything. And to come back, well, will they have anything to come back to? Maybe there'll be nothing here.
Земле наша мила, щедра і багата, не роди для воєн жодного солдата, а родити земле ковалів завзято.
We return to Kiev and to the Prokrovsky estate, where evidence of more war crimes is emerging. After Vitaly was beaten, he and his family hid in a small house in the woods. They'd hoped the worst was over.
I was out to get some food and was with my dog.
Then he came face to face with 3 Russian soldiers.
They put a gun against my neck, and my dog went to bite them.
The dog saved his life. It tried to bite the soldiers. One shot it dead. In the chaos, Vitaly escaped. From a distance, he watched as the soldiers approached a neighbor's house. Then, the sound of gunfire.
I ran away over there and hid in the bushes until evening.
He says the soldiers were taking over properties and killing anyone who resisted. Later, he discovered the bodies of his neighbor and a cousin.
The owner of this house was lying here. He'd been killed. And my cousin lay here.
Were you or any of the others armed?
No, they were unarmed. They didn't have any weapons, nothing.
After the Russians withdrew, Vitaly returned with war crimes investigators who retrieved the bodies.
The stench was so bad I felt sick and couldn't watch. This is where they lay. You can even see their bare legs. My neighbour's trousers were down at his ankles. My cousin also had his trousers taken off. I think they were abusing them. I don't know what they did. They may have raped them. I don't know.
Both men had their legs broken and they'd been shot several times. Investigators had evidence of murder, but no suspects. Then, a month later, the Ukrainian authorities released photos of suspected war criminals.
My wife was browsing through the group, and I told her, Allah, it's him. That's the one who put his gun to my throat.
Vitaly believes this is the man who threatened him and was one of those responsible for killing his neighbour and cousin. He's not from the 31st, but one of several other units in the capital at the time. "21-year-old Russian tank commander Vadim Shishimarin has just been jailed for life following Ukraine's first war crimes trial. He pleaded guilty to shooting dead an unarmed cyclist.
Я признаю вину, а я понимаю о том, что вы не сможете меня простить, но я прошу прощения за все, что я делаю.
And what about the soldiers of the 31st Airborne? We don't yet know the identities of those who terrorized Hostomel. But we do know the name of their commander, Colonel Sergei Karysyov, a highly decorated Russian officer. Karysyov's unit are now in the east, part of the Russian push to take the entire Donbass region.
The easiest investigation is the person who fired the shot. But the challenge of Ukraine is to work out who encouraged them or ordered them to pull the trigger. The difficulty will be to follow the links to see how far high it goes and whether those links can be drawn to Putin.
President Putin is unlikely to leave Russia anytime soon. The soldiers he ordered into war and who are suspected of committing war crimes will be pursued by the international community for years to come.